So if this is what we start with, we're trying to find, the instructions for this problem would be, find a polynomial of least degree that has those as roots. Right? The first thing I have to remember is I have to set this whole problem up. Okay? So what roots am I missing? I need negative I, and I need 5 plus 2i. Good. The next step is to go ahead and rewrite these as what we call factors. So we're going to have x times x minus 3 times x minus I. I'm going to go ahead and put the conjugates together because that's going to help me later on. It's going to be x plus I. And that's going to be x minus, now watch. I'm going to put the whole part there. It's a complex number. I'm going to put the whole thing together. It's going to be 5 minus 2i. And the next part is going to be x minus 5 plus 2i. Notice they're not the same. One is minus 2i, one is plus 2i. So I have 6 factors. That means I'm going to end up with a 6th degree polynomial. In fact, this may be the longest problem you've ever done in a math class. I got it. One problem done last period. This one. Okay? But it's a good problem. If you can do this, you're golden. I'm not going to give you one this long on a test. So you can do this, you can do everything I give you. All right? Now, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to go further than that. I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm going to give you several minutes. I'm going to give you 5 minutes, and I want you to go as far as you can and see what happens. All right, watch. I'm going to take a bit of time. Long time, actually. I'm going to work this out in detail. I need you to listen and to take good notes. I'm going to be as annotative as I can in terms of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So I may not write down every last thing on the screen. I may say a lot of things. Like, oh, I didn't recognize that. Then you need to make a note on your paper about what happened. Right? So I'm going to group things together. I'm going to group that together, and this together, and then this together. And why would I make that distinction between the groups? Because I need to multiply conjugates together. Right? And so if you look at it, you've got the x minus I and x plus I conjugates. They need to be multiplied together. The 5 minus 2i and 5 plus 2i, those need to be multiplied together. Happens to be that the other parts left over, I have 2 other parts, are really easy to multiply together as well. So we're going to go across the board, and we're just going to use the distributive property, or FOIL, and multiply all this together. Okay? Now, I'm going to try to be as organized as I can. So it's going to be x squared minus 3x. The next part, so I'll put that in parentheses, the next part is going to be, I told you there's a shortcut to doing conjugates. First part squared, that's going to be x squared. Last part squared, right? So if I come up here, that's really x squared minus I squared. What's I squared? Good, so it'll be x squared minus negative 1. And then we come to the next part. Now this part is legitimately pretty long. Okay, so I'm going to use FOIL. First, outer, inner, last. If you don't know what that means, that's what FOIL means. Some of you have said FOIL your whole life and never known what that really meant. Okay, so I'm going to try to demonstrate that, because if you know that, that makes this really simple. There's a lot of algebra. So we're going to do first, right? So I'm going to multiply those 2 parts together. That's x squared. I'm going to do the inside parts, but when I do the inside part, or the outside I mean, that whole whole part at the end is what I'm multiplying by. I told you yesterday there were 2 really, really important aspects that you need to dedicate in doing a problem like this. You need to be organized, and you need to take your time. Don't go too fast. You get all confused. You're going to get all this jumbled up. And so let's go through this. I'm actually not going to multiply it out right now. It's x times 5 plus 2i. And then I'm going to do the inside part. That would be these two pieces, but I'm doing that whole section right there. So that's going to be minus x times 5 minus 2i. And the last part is going to be plus, right? Because you're looking at minus minus. So it's negative times a negative at the very end, right? So we're going to do that last. So it's going to be this whole piece times this whole piece. I'm just going to write that down like it looks. So we'll have 5 minus 2i times 5 plus 2i. Everybody with me so far? At this point, I really haven't done any math. I just kind of organized it so that I can go ahead and multiply when I need to and distribute when I need to. Okay? So let's go back in and simplify the next step. All right? So we end up with, well, x squared doesn't really simplify. Minus 5x minus 2xi minus 5x plus 2xi. And now I'm going to take this and I'm going to come up here, right? With this piece, we said that if you multiply conjugates together, which I have conjugates, okay, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to do off to the side this little FOIL problem. But it's a shortcut, remember? What was the shortcut for using just multiply conjugates? First term squared minus last term squared. Right? And so it's going to be 5 squared minus 2i squared. What does that give me? It's 25 minus what? Minus 4. Well, I squared is negative 1, right? So good. So that's going to really end up being 29. So what I can do is I can take all of that and I can just go back in. Instead of writing all that out, it's just plus, if I can write a plus symbol, plus 29. Everybody with me so far? Now the next step, really easy. Let's collect like terms and simplify. So what do you notice about, well, yesterday I told you something will happen always. Will always happen at this stage. What do I lose? I lose the imaginary pieces. They will cancel out. Okay? And so you notice this part and this part are my parts that still have i's left over. I've already got rid of one I, right? The very last part when I got the I squared turned into negative 1. So these parts are gone. They're going to cancel each other out. So we have left over x squared minus 10x plus 29. Right? So we multiplied that whole last part together and we got x squared minus 10x plus 29. We're not done. Not even close. And so I'm going to bring all of this together because I've got to still multiply all of these things together. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to multiply this group together because it's going to be easier if I go ahead and do that. And so if we multiply using FOIL again, I'm going to say x squared times x squared. Do we add or multiply exponents here? Add exponents. So I'm going to have x to the 4th, and then I'm going to have minus 3x cubed plus x squared minus 3x. I did a little bit out of order so I can make sure that they're in the right order when I got done. Okay? So now you've got, so we have two different groups that we want to multiply together. We have 1 and 2. Questions so far? Alex, you good? There we go. Now, this is not technically FOIL anymore. Why? I don't have 2 and 2. I can't do first, outer. It'd be first, enter, and then so many times then last. That's not FOIL. Okay? And so what we're going to have to worry about is I'm going to take each object in my first polynomial, and when I go through and explain that, for example, I'm going to take this value, I'm going to multiply times all 3 of the values here. Then I'm going to take the next one, multiply times all 3 of the values through there, and then I'm going to do that for all 4 terms. And then I'll collect all the like terms together, and I'll be done. As if we didn't have enough already. Here we go. It'd be impressive if you can do this on your own. So x to the 4th times x squared is going to give me what? Good. So x to the 6th. And then we're going to have x to the 4th times what? So it's going to be x to the 4th, then times the 10x, then times the 20. So what's it going to be? Negative 10x to the 5th. And then x to the 4th times 29, so it's going to be plus 29x to the 4th. So now, check. I got that one done. And I kind of worked my way down the line. Do that one times all the rest, check it off. Do the next one to all the way down the line, check it off. Okay, this one's going to be negative 3x cubed times x squared. It's going to be minus 3x to the 5th. And then negative 3x times negative 10, so it's going to be positive 30 x to the 4th. That is not 30. Okay. The next part, it's going to be times 29, so it's going to be negative 87 x cubed. I'm not going to have enough room to write this. Let's see, we're going to have, okay, so we're done with that part. Let me go back and check that one off. Now we're going to do x squared. So x squared times x squared plus x to the 4th. Then x squared times negative 10x, so it's going to be negative 10x cubed. Let me stop for a minute. What I'm doing as I do this, I'm checking 2 things. I'm checking the sign and the exponent. The numbers are usually pretty easy. 10 times 3 is 30, or whatever you're doing, 10 times 1. And so as we go through this process, I just make sure that I'm multiplying all that stuff together and getting the exponents right. The last part would be x squared times 29, so it would be plus 29x squared. Okay? That means I got that one more, and we're done almost. All right? So negative 3 times x squared is going to be negative 3x to the 4th. Or is it 3rd, sorry. There I made a mistake on the exponent, but I'm checking it, so I'm double checking myself as I go along. Then I'm going to have negative 3x times negative 10x, so that's going to be plus 30x squared. And then negative 3x times 29, that's going to be minus 87x. Oh my gosh, barely. Awesome. Okay, so I can move that actually. And so if we take this, okay, there we go. If I take that, holy moly, that's a really long equation. Okay, now I need to collect all those like terms. You see up there, I've got x to the 6th. I've got a 5th powered in 2 places, a 4th powered in 3 places. I've got a cubic 3 places. I've got 2x squareds. So you see lots and lots of like terms. What does it mean to be like? 2 things. Same variable,
And
same exponent. As long as that's happening, I just add the numbers in front. I'll add all the coefficients together. So, kind of help me go along and do this. Okay, so,
start with the largest.
yep, x to the 6th. There's only one of those. Okay, boom, I got that one. I got x to the 5th here. Got one here. And, is that it?
Yeah, that's all.
So I got,
Negative 13x.
so it's going to be minus 13x to the 5th. Got those. Okay, let's do the 4th. So I have 29, I have 30, and I have 1. So that's easy. That's 60. So plus 60x to the 4th. Okay, mark those off. Why do I mark these off like this?
So you can just swap them out of your...
Boom. Once I do that, they're out of mind, out of sight. I don't worry about it. And as I get through, if I have something I haven't marked off, then I know that I left something out. It's just a way of organizing. Organization is really important here. All right, let's do the cubics. So there's 1, we have 2, and 3. So we end up with negative 87, negative 10, and negative 3, which makes minus 100x cubed. Boom, boom, boom. And what's left? There's my 2 squared values. That's going to be plus 59x squared. Here what I'm checking also 2 things when I write this in. I'm checking the sign. Should I be adding or subtracting these numbers together? And I'm making sure that I look at the exponent to make sure that I'm adding the right numbers together, because it'd be too easy. There's a really long list of factors or terms. I don't want to have to hope I get it right. And so that's that. And the very last part will be negative 87x. And if I said that we were done, I would be lying, because that's not the answer in the back of the book. Interestingly enough, I worked this problem out on the board this morning, first period, and they're like, Mr. Wigg, that's not the answer that you told us that was in the back of the book. And I was like, well, the book is wrong, because I'm pretty sure I did that right. And they're like, no. And they said, no, I got the answer in the back of the book, but you didn't. And I was like, what did I miss? She goes, you didn't read the directions. So I felt stupid. It says the coefficient of all of these are what? Read your instructions. What does it say the coefficient is? Leading coefficient. What is it? It says the leading coefficient is 2. So what do I have to do to all the numbers? I have to multiply all of those things by 2. So I have almost no room left, so I'm going to see if I can shrink this. So in this case, that would be pretty easy. Try not to turn it. That's good enough. All right, so there it is. Let's write it out in its final answer. And so that's going to be 2x to the 6th minus 26x to the 5th plus 120x to the 4th minus 200, so minus 200x cubed. That would be plus 118x squared minus 174x. And that's the answers in the back of the book. Okay? Now let me review this, go back over. That's a lot of algebra for one problem. What? In my book. In my book. I had told, first period I had given it out. I meant to give it to you guys too, but I forgot. I told them the answer. I said, here's what the answer should be when you get done with the problem. Let's back up a minute. What was important about this? Number one, I had to write out the missing factors. I told you that imaginary and square roots always come in pairs, right? And so I only gave you I, and I only gave you the 5 minus 2i. So that means I had to add in the negative I and the 5 plus 2i. I'm going to give you scenarios like this where I'm going to leave them out on purpose and see if you add those in automatically, which is great because those are easy to multiply. You want lots of that. In fact, if you had a whole list of those, that'd be easier than doing this one. Okay? Second part was going through and writing it out in its factors and deciding which groups should be multiplied together. What the real deal is, if you have conjugates, they need to be multiplied together. If you don't, then it's going to get really ugly really fast, and you're not going to want to finish it. Okay, number 3, it was really this part right here. This was what really took a lot of, just to get started. I had to figure out and be organized about writing all that out and keeping FOIL in mind, keeping that I squared was -1 in mind, collecting all like terms to get down to this step. At that point, we went over here, we used the FOIL property to get that, and then I just multiplied these two pieces together. I get this whole long list of things right here. At that stage, we went ahead, we collect all our like terms, we put them together like this. The instruction said, go ahead and multiply that by 2 to get a coefficient of 2 in front of x to the 6th. And I was done after that. Long problem. Nothing I did on the board, on the screen, should have been revolutionary to you. What I did was very long, don't get me wrong. Okay? It's taken over 20 minutes to do this. That's not counting the time I let you work by yourself. Okay? Well, no big deal. We did a lot of explanation as it's going on. So here's what you need to walk away from this with. Organization is important. Remembering I squared is important. And being able to multiply by the distributive property, not FOIL. FOIL is part of that. But remember, when we got down to this stage, that FOIL's out the door. You got to a point where it was too big to use with FOIL because I had more than 2 parts per object. So be careful. Okay? So this is how you would multiply something that had lots of roots, including imaginary roots, to get the original polynomial of least degree.